In this video, I'm going to show you why most people handicap NFL incorrectly, show you the huge mistake majority of people make when handicapping NFL, even sharps, and show you what you can do to correct that mistake and apply it to your own handicapping. My name's MG Covers. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll dive into this video. Quick reminder, on Fridays, we have free Fridays. I give out all my lines for all sports on Friday. Sometimes I'll throw in some NCAA football or some NFL. So you get access to all my power rankings on Friday. If you follow me on Instagram, there's a link to follow me in the description of this video, or it's simply at MG Covers. I want to show you NFL. It's been a good profit center for me for the last pretty much my whole career. We'll look at the results from the last 5 years. There's a secret to this, and obviously we'll get into it. But the reason I want to show this is that I kind of know what I'm doing when it comes to NFL handicapping. And albeit an unorthodox approach, last year, 25-20, it's over 56%, 6,600 divided by 748 average bet size. That would be about 8.8 units. 2023, only losing seasons I've had in my career in NFL. I realized the model had sort of lost its edge, only wagered roughly, 18 plays. I quit pretty much mid-season, but again, only lost right at $1,000. You look at 2022. Very interesting here, 18 and 23, we were 44% win ratio, but we turned a 12.9 ROI. And that doesn't seem realistic that you can have a, quote, losing record, look at 44% and still be profitable. We'll explain that in a second. And then 2021 season, another successful season, 51% win ratio, but still turned a 15.21 ROI. And then the big season was 2020. We went 17 and 14, 55%. Look at that ROI. That was my best ROI ever, 58% ROI. So again, you can look at that, and we only had obviously one losing season, but we only had a win percentage of 55% or greater only 2 out of those 5 seasons. Now, let's talk about why this is, and we'll dive into this. Very important, and I want you to listen to me closely when I say this. Teams that win in NFL or teams that cover win outright 80% of the time. I'm going to repeat that so you can let that sink in. That means if a team wins, they cover 80% of the time, or a team that covers, meaning a dog, wins outright 80% of the time. So in layman's terms, the spread is not as important as many people, including sharps, make you believe that it is in NFL handicapping. So let's go back and look at this past week, which was week 2 of the NFL season, where we're going to grade teams that won and covered. For example, look at the first one, Tampa Bay. They were +3, didn't need the points. They won outright. Chargers -3, they won and covered. LA Rams 33-19, the line was -5.5, they won and covered. Seattle, Pittsburgh, points did not help you. It was +4, maybe +3.5 at some other books. They covered, but also won outright, meaning it would be advantageous, and here's the secret, to play them on the money line as opposed to taking the points. So why on the previous screen you saw a win percentage of 44%, but we were still profitable. Buffalo -5, won and covered. Detroit 52-21, line was -6, they won and covered. Dallas won in overtime, the line was -4, so they won but did not cover. So in these games we're looking at, the spread only mattered in this particular game. Baltimore over Cleveland, line was -12, they won and covered. And let's move on to the second set of games in that same week. The later game, San Francisco was -3, they won and covered. New England, Miami +2.5, they won and covered. So there was no advantage in taking the +2.5, and we'll talk about the reasons why this is the way that it is. Cincinnati, line was -3.5, they won and covered. Arizona probably should have won and covered. They won but did not cover. Late comeback there by Carolina. Denver and Indianapolis. Indianapolis won and covered. Philadelphia, KC. Philadelphia won and covered. Atlanta, Minnesota in the Sunday night game, they won and covered. And then finally, Green Bay and Washington from that Thursday night game, Green Bay won and covered. So for week 2 of the NFL season, the spread only mattered in 2 games. That's it, 2 games. So another way to frame this in layman's term, the NFL is basically a money line sport disguised as a spread sport. So in a money line sport is Major League Baseball. You have money lines, you're predicting the winner. Another example of a money line sport is NHL. You have a money line, you're predicting who's going to win the game. In essence, that's all you're doing in NFL, because if you can predict the winner, I'm not saying it's difficult, I'm helping you to understand correctly how to handicap NFL. If you can pick the winner, that team will win and cover 80% of the time. And the point spread, in essence, is irrelevant. Now, this is a very important point to make. If you go to week 1, the spread only mattered in 4 games. 12 divided by their 16 games, that's a little bit under 80%, maybe 75%. But if you do the research on your own, you will see that that averages 80%. So this is an important point I want to make. Anything that people claim in this business, the sports handicapping business, because it's a math-based, statistically based business, you, the consumer, can actually verify it. Because many times, one of the downfalls of our society, the downfalls of the internet, the downfalls of social media, everyone has a platform. That doesn't mean everyone that has a platform says, quote, correct things. So anytime I say something, somebody else in this industry says something, you more than likely will have an opportunity to verify that. At the end of this video, you can click on a link. I'll post this. There was a handicapper that talked about the NCAA tournament and said that if you buy points, you would increase your win percentage significantly. And it was totally incorrect, the information that he provided. I proved it in the video. But if you go look at the tweet that he made, there were a ton of comments. He's a very popular figure. The name is irrelevant. A ton of people posted reactions to the Twitter. Hey, thanks. This is great information, but none of them verified it. They just thanked him for giving this information, even though the information he was providing to buy points was incorrect. It gave you no advantage in winning. So even though I'm telling you this and I just showed you this, I would verify this on my own, meaning I would go back and look at maybe week 7 of 2024 season, week 14 of 2022. But this is what I call a statistical property. That's a term you don't hear in the sports betting community. It's a term I made up. And a statistical property is a fact about that sport. And this is going to tie into how you're handicapping NFL moving forward. You want to take the statistical property and use it to your advantage. For example, in soccer, what I've realized between the home, the draw side, and the away side, the home side wins more than the draw or the away side. So if we just play home teams, that will significantly increase our win percentage. So we're using the statistical property of the home team winning more than the away and the draw side to our advantage. So in NFL, if you are going to play a underdog, it is advantageous to play that team on the money line majority of the time. There's always exceptions, and I will explain that later in the video. Now, the next part of this, what I want to do is I want to let's take a look at the model that I've created for NFL. This is what I call the classes model. We're not going to get into detail about that, but this shows the plays via the classes model for weeks 1 and week 2, and we'll apply what we've learned. First off, this was a very popular game, Chargers in Kansas City. The way that I have it via the classes model, this is a 50-50 game, so we would play the dog in this situation. A ton of people, including sharps, took Chargers at +3. Another mistake that's in this industry, and I'm guilty of this too, when people are successful in anything, it is very difficult for them to change their methodology and the way they approach, because the way they have done it, they've been successful at it, and they believe that is the best way to do it. So you have to be careful with success, and I believe that's why you still see a lot of sharps per se. Even maybe sharps that are successful in NFL don't play a significant amount of money line dogs, albeit going against this huge statistical property. So Chargers via the model, the way I play it, would be plus 1.47 units. And over here on the right, this shows the traditional way of playing it. Now, let's scroll down to another dog we hit was New England. So that would have been plus 1. Jacksonville, Washington against the Giants. Arizona over New Orleans, did lose. Cincinnati and Cleveland. That was one where Cincinnati won but didn't cover. So via the model, I'm grading these on minus 110 juice. So if you total up, playing it the Moneyline dog approach, that would be 3.67 units. If you play it the traditional way, you would have only gained 2.8 units. And just to let this cement into your mind, you might be watching this and saying, yes, there are going to be situations where you would have needed those points. Yes, but overall, over a long sample size, it's only going to come into play 20% of the time. So do you want to play into an 80% probability, or do you want to play into a 20% probability? You want to play into an 80% probability, which means if the team you feel like is going to win or cover, if it's a dog, advantageous to play them on the money line. Now, here is another ancillary benefit. Houston and the Rams from week 1. I think Houston was the underdog. Rams were we had both of these as a B team, so the play would have been Houston. I think you could have played them on the money line. Let's take a look and see if I have this. Yeah, here we go. So here's Houston Rams. Line was +3. We'll pull up the odds screen. And let's see a general consensus over here, somewhere around, say, plus 144 at Bookmaker. Pinnacle had them at plus 158. So let's just say plus 144. So instead of playing the +3, it would have been advantageous to play them on the money line. And the final score of that game, let's go back to that briefly. The Rams won 14-9. So the probability or the statistical property was true in this game. The +3 did not help you in that particular game. Why? Because 20% spread will only come into play 20% of the time in NFL. So advantageous to play Houston on the money line. Now, if we go back to the tracker here, if you play it the traditional way, you would have lost minus 1.1 units. If you play it the Moneyline dog approach, you would have only lost minus 1 unit. And you can see the difference there. So on the losses, on the Moneyline dogs, you're only losing 1 unit, not paying any juice. And then when you're playing the Moneyline dogs, instead of winning 1 unit, you're winning whatever the Moneyline dog number was, whether it was +1 or +130. So the difference is the model profited 3.67 units as opposed to profiting 2.8 units. Now let's go to week 2. It's the same thing. It went 5-2 in weeks 1 and weeks 2. The Moneyline dogs was Washington, so that was a loss. But again, that would be only minus 1 units because you would be playing it on the money line as opposed to playing it the traditional way, minus 1 point. Same deal, no advantage to taking the points with New England. Advantageous to play on the money line, plus 1.27 units. The traditional way, you would have won only 1 unit. And then, again, you can see the final tally there. The model had 3.49 units gained. If you play it the traditional way, only 2.8 units. So extremely advantageous to understand this concept. I want to show you the long-term benefits of doing this. This is an old NFL top-down model that I had 2023, 2022. The traditional way of playing this was, I didn't wager this way. This was just a top-down concept I was tracking. The traditional way of not playing moneyline dogs and just taking the points went 36 and 24, 9.7 units. If you would have played every single dog on the money line, it would have profited 17.88 units. And I don't have the win-loss ratio, but more than likely it probably had more losses than the 24 here, but was more profitable because we were playing all those money line dogs. Again, it's a statistical property. The money line dog, if they win, 80% chance. I mean, 80% chance that if they cover, they're going to win outright. Look at 2022, same deal, 8.78 units playing it the traditional way, playing money line dogs instead of taking the points, 12.36 units. And again, the obvious benefit of this, there's two things. Number one, you're going to make more on the money line dogs when they win. And because you're paying less juice, your win percentage can decrease. And we go back to the screenshot here. So you can be 46%, you can be 44%, 51%, and still be profitable in an NFL. If you just play spreads at roughly minus 110 juice, just to break even, you have to be at 53%. And in my opinion, I think NFL is an extremely, extremely difficult sport to handicap. It's a short season. You do not have a ton of recent performance. Like right now, all we have is 2 weeks of data. It's not a sport like Major League Baseball. So there's a ton of variance and very difficult, but handicapping this way will make it a lot easier to profit long-term. Now, I do want to make one other point here with regards to Moneyline dogs. Now, look at this Minnesota. Let me pull this up. Minnesota and Chicago. I think this was from week 1. You can, let's just look at bookmaker closing line here. Minnesota was -1, and they won this game 27-24. Minnesota was -1. Let's just use bookmaker example. They were -1, -105. Pretty good line. Now, if there's a situation when you're playing at a -1, -105 line, it may be advantageous to look at the money line and simply play that team on the money line. So let's say you had several books here. So in this particular example, you could play Minnesota -1, -105, or look at the money line -108. So in this situation, at a -1, here I would play the money line. Why? Because for only 3 cents more, if they win by 1, you would actually win as opposed to losing. So is it worth the 3 cents to play it on the money line? Absolutely. Okay. So that would be the exception. So there would never be a scenario in NFL where you'd want to play a -2.5 favorite on the money line. Just no advantage to doing that. Whatever that line would be, minus 145, -165. Why? Going back to the statistical property, if they win, they're going to cover 80% of the time. And all you would be doing at that point is just giving the books, quote, extra juice. Now let's also flip the script and look at the +1. And this would apply to the +1, meaning if you see a money line dog like Chicago +1, you're watching this video, okay, MG said instead of taking the points, we play it on the money line. In this situation, maybe not, depending on what line you could get, because you can see here at Bookmaker made it +1 -115. So instead of playing it on the money line, it might be advantageous to go ahead and take that point. And that would depend on the line you would get over here. You can see here Pinnacle had it at -108. So it really depends on what line you're getting, if that makes sense. So here I would probably, in that particular instance, I would take the -108 money line, again, because we already know if they cover, they're going to win outright. So all you're doing with that -115, you're just giving the books, extra money there. So in that particular scenario, I would play that on the money line instead of taking the +1 at -115. So make sure if you're on a favorite at -1, make sure you look at the money line, and the same deal at +1 on the money line, because again, if the line is the same for the dog, meaning if your book has +1 -110, taking the 1 point, or money line -110, obviously advantageous to play take the +1. So those are the exceptions on that. And then also too, finally, let's go back to, is this week 1 of the season? I want to talk about one other exception. Dallas and Philadelphia from this Monday night here. Again, the way I cap NFL, I generally don't like to play favorites beyond that 7. The reason being, the most popular margins of victory in NFL are the 3 and the 7. I think after that is the 4. I think the 10's in there somewhere. But generally speaking, once it gets beyond a touchdown, it is very difficult in the NFL overall to beat a team by more than a touchdown, which makes the NFL another sport that's very difficult to handicap. So in this situation, if my model indicated Dallas was a play, obviously I would not play Dallas on the money line, simply because we're getting if they lose by a touchdown, which is a common number, you would still cover. So again, I would still be smart here. So if that line is, 7.5, or if it's 8 and my model indicated Dallas was a play, I would play Dallas on taking the points as opposed to playing the money line. So a quick review. Again, when you finish watching this video, take a minute to verify what I'm telling you. Again, and that's true of anything that you see on the internet. The majority of people that are teaching, quote, sports betting education have no clue what they're doing. Always verify that. Teams that win cover 80% of the time in the NFL, or teams that cover win outright 80% of the time. Advantageous to play dogs on the money line. If you would like access to this model here where you can see these actual plays each week, you can do that for $50 a month. The way I have my site set up, there's over 150 coaching videos. So you can go from somebody that has no clue what they're doing about sports betting, get educated very quickly. You're able to see the plays via the model, all the coaching videos on the site for only $50 a month. Link to join in the description. If you want access to everything I just mentioned, in addition to all my personal plays, $100 a month. And then the best value, instead of paying $100 each month, you can pay $4.99 one time, gives you access to everything on the website for an entire year, almost like getting an associate's degree in sports education. And then finally, I started a Substack where I'm teaching models. This is separate from that business. So you can join right now for free, and I'm making about 3 posts a week. We have posted our first paid post, very inexpensive, but right now it's free to get on Substack, learn about models. Greatly appreciate you guys watching this video to the end. Talk to you guys later. Peace.